mom bun. Oh well. Hey everyone, Becky here, FiveTwoBaker. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are working on princess number 3 of our Disney princess inspired flowers. We've done Rapunzel, we've done Moana. I'll link those videos down below in case you're playing catch up. And now we are doing princess number 3, Princess Belle from Beauty and the Beast, with what I think is an obvious choice of flower, the enchanted rose. So excited to share this with you guys. It's so beautiful. If you've seen my other video on how to make roses and you're wondering, Becky, is this all the same material? It is not. The rose is different. The technique for everything is different, from the petals to the calyx to the leaves. So I really think you're going to enjoy this. I hope you stick around. As with all my other tutorials, I give you the exact number of petals, cutters, all of that. If you come out of this and you think, I want more petals, add more petals. If you're like, I want it more free and open, add less petals. It's all good. This is sugar art. I'm just giving you a technique so that you can go out there and put that technique to make your own flowers, whether they be full or sparse, whatever you want. I have 3 roses here as an example. They're all pretty similar, but they're not twins. They don't look exactly alike. So let's get to it. For this rose, we're going to start with a small styrofoam ball. Mine is about 1 inch in diameter. You just put your wire through it and form it around into a stem. Then grab your floral tape and, starting from the base of the ball, roll it at an angle all the way down to get your wires all together. Once you have this, go ahead and grab a chunk of gum paste and roll it into a cone shape. Wet the tip of your styrofoam ball with just a little bit of edible glue and start to form that cone at the very top and pull it all the way down, taking off any excess and forming it into a bud shape. Once you have that, go ahead and let it dry for a while until it's hard. The 3 cutters we're going to use today are all about the size of the rose bud. So just go ahead and roll out your flour paste. Make sure it's as thin as you can get it while not compromising it when you pick it up. And just as a base, we're going to do about 6 small petals and 6 medium petals. Go ahead and get those onto your foam mat. Put them to the side, cover them if you need to, and roll out some more paste so that you can do some really large petals. This is the biggest size, and we're going to cut another 6. So this is just so that it's easy to remember, but you use as many or as few for every size. For your small and medium ones, that's all I have room for on my foam board, so I'm gonna go ahead and thin the petals out. I roll the edges and then I roll the center a little bit if I think it needs a little more thinning out. And now, using my veiner, I'll go ahead and pop each of them one by one, give it a firm press, peel it out, and keep going until I have all of my petals veined. Again, if you need, go ahead and cover it or work in batches. For each of these small and medium petals, I'm going to give the top right corner just a little bit of a curl. That's all I want, is just a little bit. Most of them are going to lose the curl anyway, but it just gives it a little movement. The medium ones, I'm gonna go ahead and move to the side because I don't have space on my board and I need to work on my large petals before they dry out. So I bring in my large petals and I do the exact same process. Thin them out, pop them in the veiner, and then pop them back out onto the board. And again, this veiner is so beautiful. If you haven't, my last video comparing veiners, I'll have a link to it there. Once you have all these veined, go ahead and pop them on spoons. You're going to need these to set a little more than the medium and the small. For these, I go ahead and give both ends a curl, but you don't need to. At the very least, I would give the top right though a nice little curl. Now I bring all 6 small ones and all 6 medium ones back and my dried center bud back. I'm going to go ahead and put edible glue all around it, grab one small petal and wrap it all the way around so you don't see any white, and so it looks like a nice tight little curl. Now for each of these petals, I want them to be the same height, so I go ahead and make sure we're at about the same height, and then I lay it flat against. These petals are already up against the white center bud, which has some glue on it, so I don't really need to add a lot. And I really just want to keep the very bottom of each petal glued so that I have more ability to move it before I set them all in place at the end. So I just tuck it under the last petal and then turn the entire flower just a bit. Tuck it under the last petal, turn the rose just a bit, and I keep going until I'm just about out of petals. But feel free to work with less petals at a time or glue more frequently, whatever makes it easier for you to handle the flower. Now that I'm starting to overlap on the red petals, I go ahead and add a little bit of glue to the bottom left hand of the petals I'm putting on, but I continue to tuck under and then turn the flower, tuck under and turn. And now that I have all my petals glued, I go ahead and I adjust, I fan them out, I bring them in a little closer, whatever it is that I need, and then I glue the bottom tips. I want the top of the flower to still be open, so I'm only gluing the very bottom. Once you're done adjusting, go ahead and hang it upside down to firm up a bit. Now for the very, very outer petals, it's still the same large size, that third veiner that we used, but these are going to have wires because I want this flower to be super open and look like some of the petals are falling down. So I'm gonna need a wire for that. And because I hate wires, I'm going to use my veining board to make it a little bit easier on me. I go ahead and get my vein, line it up center with my cutter, pop it out, and for these, I'm gonna use about 5 petals, but again, as many as you want. My pieces of wire are about 3 inches long. They're 34 gauge because I want them very thin. I want it to move a lot. I just need something to give it a little extra support because it's so open. I go ahead and wet it with some edible glue, pop it in the center vein, pinch the end, and I pop it in about halfway through because I need a lot of support. I thin them out after this, and then the exact same process as the other petals, I'm gonna go ahead and pop them in the veiner and then slap it onto a spoon so that it gets the shape. And these I really need to dry up so that they maintain their shape. And what's nice about using the 34 gauge is that when you pop it in the veiner, it's not going to be a problem because it's so thin, it will go with any movement you give it. Now that we have our flower a little more dry, you'll see that those large petals that were not wired, they keep their shape, but they're a leathery feel. So if I go ahead and squeeze them like I did, shake them around, they're going to move. And that's what I want. I want it to hold its shape, but still be able to move so that I can conform it around the flower without it breaking. So I go ahead and put some glue on the bottom left-hand corners of my petals. And just like the other ones, I'm going to tuck them underneath a petal. Whatever petal I have most open, I'm gonna go and work from there. And then tuck the next one under the last one I put, and so on, trying to tuck in under petals that are already there where I can, so it looks a little more natural and a little less like I've done this in layers. Again, you glue where you need. because the petals are a little more set in their shape, you might have to glue a little more. And if you need to take out that curl on the top left-hand side, by all means do. My curl was getting in the way, so I went ahead and pressed it out. But you see, because I curled it to begin with, it has a little more movement. It's not just a flat petal. So you go ahead and you do this all the way around, adjusting as needed. Once you're happy, you go ahead and make sure to add a little bit of glue to the bottom of each of your petals so that they don't move out of place and they have enough structure to stay. You pop that upside down if you need your other petals to set a bit more. And once they are set, go ahead and grab your floral tape, wrap it a few times at the base of your flower, and without worrying where you're gonna tuck it, just go ahead and place one petal over the last, overlapping until you get all the way around your rose, and then work your tape all the way down the rose stem. And you'll see it's kind of crazy right now, but it's okay. We need it like that so we can color it. Now for the calyx, go ahead and measure against the petal. I want them really big and wide, so mine is almost going to be the size of my largest petal. I'm going to grab again my 34 gauge wire, put a little bit of green paste on it, and just flatten it out with a little paintbrush or your rolling pin. If your paste is a little dry and you think you need it, go ahead and add a little bit of edible glue first. And because it's so big, I'm going to vein it with my rose veiner so that it has a little more texture because it's really going to be out there. I use my little scissors and I cut the shape I want and then cut those little extra things that stick out of the calyx. I don't know what they're called. And if your paste dries quickly, go ahead and shape it right now. Now the same as with your last petals, go ahead and put some floral tape at the very base and tape your calyx as close to the base as you possibly can. Add one calyx leaf, wrap it around once, add another one, and so on until you get all 5 calyx leaves all the way around your rose, hopefully evenly spaced. I like to do this while my calyx is still semi-wet so that I can go ahead and arrange them at the end and fix them however I need without fear of them breaking. If you feel like you need a little bit more green at the base, go ahead and add a little more paste, but I'm okay with how mine is. You adjust everything and then it's time to color. So this coloring is pretty easy. I'm just gonna use a whole lot of dark red to begin with, and then where I highlight, it's going to be red mixed in with just the tiniest amount of black. And black goes a long way, so really do just start off with a little bit and build upon it. For the red, I cover the entire rose. My goal here is to get an even color between the petals and get those veins to pop. And so that's what this red coat of color dust is going to do for me. It gets off all the cornstarch, it makes everything pop, and then when I mix it in with black, I'm going to go on the center of the outermost petals to darken that in, and then on the edges and anywhere where there's a natural shadow, I'm going to enhance that shadow with that black. So I just go around the whole flower looking for any natural shadows, any edges, anywhere that I want it to look more aged. And I get the very tips of the calyx also, just to make it a little more interesting, so that it's not flat. With the dark green, I go down the center of the calyx on the back and on the front, again to give it a little more depth so it doesn't look like a flat leaf. Then I glue the very base of the outermost petals and I press them down using a dry brush. That's what it'll look like. And I set it to dry. Now for my leaves, because we worked so hard on the petals, we're just going to do some easy rose leaves. I pop them out with a cutter, thin them out a bit with my rolling ball tool. I'm going to vein them and then just pop them right out of the veiner. And then using my 34 gauge wire again, I'm going to put a little bit of glue and kind of tackle them in between the leaf. I'm not going down the center with a veining board or anything. I'm just going to smush it all around the wire. To color these, I go ahead with a dark green down the center, and then I take that red that I used earlier, sometimes even a brown, to give it a more earthy look, and I do that around the edges and the back spine of the leaf so that it looks more interesting. Again, I don't want anything flat. I want it to look more lifelike. And then I tape them together in groups of 3. Once I have it taped together, I take a look at it and I think I want a little bit more red on the edges. So I do it just at the top. And then you just put it on your rose and you're good to go. And that's it, guys. I hope you really enjoyed that. As always, if you have any questions, please do drop them down in the comments below. I will get back to you. If you liked this video, if you found it helpful, do give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. We will continue on with more princesses. I'm excited to share those. And come back next week, even if you didn't subscribe. Come back next week because we're going to be working on painting Belle. I've got some really great tips that I think you guys are going to enjoy, and I cannot wait to share that with you also. But I'll see you later.